So again, my name's Christy Still. I'm the Director of Mental Health, specifically in the Division of Student and Family Supports. I know Denisha already touched on the Best for All strategic plan, but I want to touch on it again from the aspect of kind of where I sit in the division in which I work in. So really tagging in with that student readiness section of the Best for All strategic plan. But all of the work that I'm going to talk about for the Division of Student and Family Supports today really, again, supports the whole strategic plan. So really looking at, making sure we're addressing those non-academic needs. We're going to talk a little bit about trauma-informed schools, making sure we're seeing that whole child and all of the needs that they're bringing to the table and making sure that we're helping them be on a path for success. We talk a lot in the work that I get to do, or blessed to talk a lot in the work that I get to do about educators, how to keep educators where they are, how to keep educators taking good care of themselves, how to keep everybody in that building's cups filled so they're able to do the work that they need to do every day, because we know that relationship is so essential for our student success. And so having those educators, having those strong relationships, those strong sense of communities in school is very important. And all of that helps to benefit the overall academic success of our students, which tags well into just the concept of everyone plays a role, right? We have so many times that our work is siloed. One person deals with this one thing, one person deals with this other thing, but we really want in our division to have the message that every single person in that school building and in that community plays a significant role in the life of a child or a student. And so making sure that we all know how we work together as a collaborative for that overall student success. So we're going to talk a lot about some presentations that really focus on relationship building and resilience. But before we get started, really wanted to take a time to talk about mental health supports and the need for mental health supports. I know you guys are all thinking, okay, we know we need mental health supports. You guys are in the trenches every single day doing that work. But sometimes we don't have the statistics to back up that need. So wanting to highlight a couple of things that really show the volume of mental health needs that we're seeing. So knowing that mental health disorders are the most common disease in childhood, knowing that an estimated of 70% of children have experienced some type of physical or emotional trauma. So again, in our division, we talk a lot about trauma awareness. We talk a lot about trauma-informed schools. We're really seeing that 70% number and realizing the volume of what we're encountering with students and ourselves as adults. We were kiddos one time too, so that number rings true for us. And mental health is associated with a lot of school absences and also a loss of critical school funding. So thinking about when you need to be that cheerleader for mental health supports in your individual schools, sometimes that's helpful to have some statistics to be able to ground that into. 1/3 of our young people only 1/3 will advance to post-secondary education. So again, looking at, mental health is not a standalone over to the side, right? It impacts our overall functioning. So knowing that does impact our educational development. More than 60% of schools in juvenile detention have a diagnosable mental illness. Again, so thinking about how can we be proactive, how can we be preventative, and how do we help keep our children out of those systems? And a big part of that is that awareness and that intervention that we'll talk a little bit about when we go over some of the trainings that our division offers. And looking at, that impact, again, if we're not doing well, that impact that we may end up dropping out of school altogether. Wanted to also take a moment. We all know COVID is at the forefront of everything. And as I think Allison mentioned, this year started off in a very different way than we had high hopes of this year starting off, and really wanting to look at some of that mental health impact related to COVID. So these statistics are actually pulled nationally from the CDC. It's actually looking at March through October of 2020. So I would jump to say that I would assume this trend is continuing. I don't have data to back that up on this slide, but I will say from March in comparison of March 2020 through October 2020 compared to 2019, we saw a 24% increase in the children's age 5 to 11 needing mental health, going to the emergency department related to mental health needs, and then seeing that huge spike of 31% for our children in that 12 to 17 age group. So again, I would assume that trajectory unfortunately has continued, but just knowing that volume of impact that COVID is having on everyone's wellness and overall mental health functioning, and thinking about, we know a lot of times that during COVID, there has been a decrease in supports for families. There's been a decrease in referrals and things made for CPS or things like that. There's also been an increase in anxiety, depression, and really that isolation piece for our students, and a lot of disengagement sometimes with maybe someone was connected into services before to address their mental health needs and they became disconnected because of the change if they didn't have access to telehealth services and things like that. And so just framing all of that to say we need mental health supports, we need focus on mental health, which again, I know I'm talking to an audience that very well knows that. You guys could all give me textbook examples of things you're seeing every single day that shows that need. In our division, we divide things into 3 different buckets. So our mental health programming is focused on awareness, innovation, and teamwork. So during my brief time with you guys today, I'll break down each of those buckets to talk about what the division is doing in each of those areas. And one thing that I didn't say when I got started is I can't see the chat today. However, as I'm going through, if there are any questions specific to our division that you have, or anything specific to the trainings that I'm going to be talking about, if you want to put those questions in the chat, Kira and Allison will do their best to fill those questions. And if we miss anything that they're not able to answer, I'm not able to answer, I'll try to circle back in our second presentation that we have today so we get closure on those things for you guys. So again, we want to develop and promote trainings. We want to listen to the needs of the community, but also be innovative in the trainings that we're developing. And we want to deliver implementation supports for districts. So one of the main needs for the role of the district regional health and wellbeing consultants was we really wanted to be able to be that support partner. We really wanted to be at the district level and hear what needs are being identified there. So that's why we wanted to have those 8 positions throughout the state, and I'll talk more about that later. But focusing on our first bucket, that awareness piece, I would say the one thing COVID has allowed us to do is pick up a lot of virtual skills that we never knew that we needed to have, right? I think we're all more savvy with how to get connected in on a Teams meeting, or more savvy on how to even put a PowerPoint together, things that we never knew, skills we never knew we needed. And so our trainings, we realized, okay, we can't stick with our just in-person model, right? We have to adapt and change with that. So one thing that we did is we are offering a lot of our supports virtually, if that makes sense for the requester of the training, and also Best for All Central being something that people can work at their own pace. We realize in a virtual environment, sometimes we can get people to a training that wouldn't have been able to come to that training if they had to take the time to travel a long distance or be out of their school. Whereas if you can take a 1-hour training or something where you can still be in your building, that allows you to be able to participate in things maybe you weren't able to participate in before. And then expanding that even more with Best for All Central, because it really allows you to work at your own pace. Maybe there's a certain topic area you're interested in, and you don't have 3 hours to denote, to give to something. Being able to sit down and work at your own pace is so important. The piece with innovation, so awareness is the training piece. How do we offer our training? How do we deliver it? And innovation is really, we can do all of these beautiful things, but if we don't take the time to reflect on what our successes were, what our lessons learned were, that we're not going to be shaping good initiatives future forward. So 2 examples that are on this slide is really looking at AWARE and looking at our trauma-informed schools cohort. So with AWARE, we are in our second grant cycle, and I'll talk a little bit more about AWARE later on. And with our trauma-informed schools cohort, we're actually in our second trauma-informed schools cohort. So we're able to look back and be like, what worked really well? And where are there opportunities for us in the future? Where are there opportunities to potentially grow the AWARE work? And where is there opportunities to continue to launch trauma-informed cohorts to be supportive of schools that are really wanting to go down that trauma-informed journey? The last bucket that we'll talk about is a big bucket because there's a lot of different pieces and parts in that. So really looking at teamwork, again, wanting to be that thought partner with districts, wanting to understand the needs that are going on out there. And we can create all these great things, but if it's not something that's needed, we're wasting your time, to be honest. We really want to make sure that we're hearing what you need. That's where the district regional health and wellbeing consultants come into place for our division, really going and looking at coordinated school health action plans, LEA plans, FRC plans, and really looking at those connections of the things that are bubbling up in districts. Really wanting to make sure that we support all of the workers, that we're providing training geared towards every single person. It's not just the school counselor and the teacher who needs information. It's also the bus drivers, the cafeteria workers, the front office staff. So making sure that everything that we're doing, we're really looking at that whole community of that school. Another thing that we realized during the pandemic was the need for support, the need for the staff to have emotional support. So we were able to work with the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse to get that pandemic support stress line that hopefully all of you are aware of now, because that's been going on for a while. But maybe just having somebody, briefly, confidentially, a brief person to talk to about your stressors and things that are going on, who are fielding calls from people all day with similar situations and being able to have those benefits and support. Really also wanting to bring that trauma-informed conversation into educator prep programs. So, not waiting until we're in schools and trying to implement, but really having that knowledge and that curriculum and information during prep programs to begin with. And then we will talk a little bit more in depth about family resource centers, because that is really a huge piece of the work that we do in our division. Taylor Rayfield leads the family resource centers from the state perspective, and he does a wonderful job of offering professional development and connections for all of the FRCs throughout the state, and making sure that we're, again, listening to the needs, not only in the schools themselves, but also from the families that are coming into the school environments. So speaking of FRCs, here's our map of FRCs. You'll notice in blue, that means every district in the county has an FRC, versus the ones that kind of have the two different colors on the screen. And so that's showing that there are some of the districts in that area. And unfortunately, there are areas, of course, that still don't have family resource centers. We would love to see that on a scale for everyone to have family resource centers available to them. I believe family resource centers have been around since 1993. I'm sure all of you who have a family resource center in your area could share a wonderful story of how that's been able to benefit your school and benefit the students you're working with. We do have 102 family resource centers through 79 school districts and 65 counties throughout the state. To give you an idea of the volume of work that they do, in the 2019-2020 school year, they provided supports for over 80,000 students, and reported in really a lot of networking there to get the work done. So they reported in $12 million worth of grants and in-kind contributions, goods and services. So really, again, each FRC is really listening to that needs of that specific community and helping to meet those needs overall. Some areas that family resource centers focus on, again, a lot of family resource centers, most of them have food banks, clothing closets, academic supports, mental health supports, bringing in those mental health providers into the school environment, job assistance, there's parenting skills, family literacy, job readiness training, and really focusing on the areas that you guys see on the slide before you. So that areas of focus, how do we help students be at school every day and be successful? How do we help eliminate all of these barriers that are occurring related to absenteeism issues, related to mental health issues? So really being that force to go and unlock the potential of every family and every student by removing as many barriers as possible, by offering as much wraparound services and support as possible in each of those areas where there is an FRC. Another area to focus on, and this would be Janet Watkins and Elizabeth Davis, who leads this work. So Taylor Rayfield is all FRCs. Janet Watkins and Elizabeth Davis lead our AWARE work. We are currently in our second AWARE grant. Our first AWARE grant was for Lawrence County, Lauderdale, and Anderson County. Currently, we're working with Cobb Lake, Hickman, and Fayette County. That is a 5-year, both of those were 5-year grants. So currently, I believe the grant we're in now started in 2019 and will wrap up in 2024. And the beauty of the first grant is several of those districts were able to continue that work, which is that's when something's successful, right? We see the value in the work and we find a way to be able to continue that work past the grant cycle, which isn't always feasible. That's totally understandable, but when it can continue, that's wonderful. So looking at a couple of the focuses of AWARE is to plan and implement school and community mental health services and professional development opportunities, increase community-wide mental health awareness and reduce stigma. And they have done all kinds of creative things. They have had jingles played on the radio from their youth council. They have had billboards. They have had little handheld fans made, banners made, t-shirts made. So really just having that conversation about mental health, normalizing in those school environments, in those districts. And I know we all strive for this. This is a huge initiative for them. Having the conversation, really utilizing youth councils to be a voice in the school, promoting positive school climate using a multi-tiered system framework of support, increasing capacity to identify and respond to youth mental health needs, and expanding the continuum of mental health. Definitely, we're already looking at that telehealth world, but in the last year and a half, they've really, tapped into how can they utilize telehealth services. Each of those areas have a memorandum of understanding or MOU agreement with or with more than one sometimes, a mental health provider in their area to bring in additional counselors to address mental health needs, and also really working on an electronic referral pathway to make sure that students are easily getting referred for services and those referrals are being followed up on in a timely fashion, and that they're getting quality services once those referrals. So it's not just the handoff of a referral, but really making sure that's followed through all the way to the completion of the services or the additional linkage of services for their students. So again, thinking about areas that we would want to grow or work, it would be wonderful to be able to continue to build upon the lessons that we're learning from AWARE and being able to share that insight and information to other districts who might have interest of similar models. One of the things that I think I was actually put on the agenda for was really talking about trainings and professional development. So I mentioned earlier on, moving out of that just large trainings in person, which we still want to do that. And we love doing that. We love having people in the room and the energy of a room. But also wanting to make sure things are available for you at your own time and at your own pace. So with professional development on Best for All Central, if you're not already familiar with Best for All Central, it can be your best friend. There's so much information on there. I'm only going to speak to the trainings that are coming out of the Division of Student and Family Supports, but there's a whole myriad of a lot of different things that are on there. So if you don't know this website already, I encourage you to jot it down or easily just Google Best for All Central TDOE and it'll pop up for you. So we'll talk a little bit more about some trainings that are on there. This is actually one that we can offer virtually or in person. So Youth Mental Health First Aid, through the luxury of the AWARE grant, we have a little over 45 trainers statewide. This training does occur usually in person. We can do it virtually, but it is usually 20 to 30 participants in the training and really it's primarily geared towards 12 to 18. However, it can be younger age students than that. But that's kind of the wheelhouse. And then I think you can go as young as 8 for it to be truly effective. But it's really helping, how do we watch for warning signs related to mental health concerns? What kind of intervention can we do? Really talking a lot about the importance of listening and understanding the needs of the student and that linkage to services. So really making sure that we're getting students connected into resources. So it's a wonderful model that it works staff through. Again, about 20 to 30 staff can go through that at a time. Janet Watkins is the lead on the Youth Mental Health First Aid training. However, all of the consultants in each region are trained to deliver the Youth Mental Health First Aid presentation. So if you ever have interest in that or your district has interest in that, you could reach out to any of us and we could get you connected in for that content. And let me say with that one, there is no expectation that someone coming into that has a counselor background or a therapist background. It really is geared towards anyone who wants to learn more about mental health and who would want to be available and be of support to students. So it would be great for any of your staff if you're seeing those needs. Another training to highlight that this one does still occur only in person at this point. I think our goal is to have this one usually occurs at the district level. So bringing together district leaders, school leaders, to dig in deeper, and I know this is an area that you all are very passionate about, dig in deeper to why we need mental health supports, what mental health supports can look like, how to partner with a mental health provider in your area to help provide additional supports in the school and partner with your wonderful school counselors that you already have, and school psychologists you already have, and social workers you already have, how to take that tier model approach. So in February, if everything goes as planned, which who knows nowadays if things are going to go as planned, but if everything goes as planned, we're going to try to offer this training again at the district level by region in February. And really, the great thing of that is really the districts take a clear look at kind of where they are from an assessment standpoint and really leave there with action steps of what they want to do to build upon the mental health supports that they already are providing or what they realize maybe we're not doing and how they want to make change with that and add in additional supports. So more to come on that. And again, I hope that will be offered out to every region at the district level. I think we're going to offer 8 different training opportunities at each region. So A training that is on the Best for All Central link that I mentioned is supporting students who have experienced trauma. Again, this is work at your own pace. So you can come and go from that however you want to. There's videos to watch. There's things you can print out. It talks about an introduction to trauma. So if you're a school, maybe you're not in the trauma-informed schools cohort, but you're very interested in the trauma work, or you've seen a lot of issues bubbling up in your school and you want your staff to be more trauma aware, this will be a great training. It talks about the importance of responding to behaviors in a trauma-informed way, how we easily, unbeknownst to us, can escalate a situation very unintentionally on our part, but what are some different responses? How can we really approach that child from an understanding of the trauma they may have experienced? How to build a trauma-informed classroom. Again, the beginning steps of how to become a trauma-informed school. And also movement as medicine. So really looking at that connection between the mind and the body, and really some implications there or some interventions there that can be done. And that one is on Best for All Central. This one, also Shifting Our Lens, is available on Best for All Central. Again, it's a 3-hour training, but on Best for All Central, you can come and go as you need to. This talks about the target audience that might want to participate in this training. It talks about brain architecture, creating trauma-informed environments. You'll notice themes here. We're talking a lot about trauma-informed work in a lot of different ways. This is also a training the consultants can offer. So if you have a district level need, again, knowing that your consultant might be able to deliver that at the district level. Everyone plays a role, connecting systems of support. That one spends a good chunk of time on that educator self-care piece. You know, how are we going to soldier through and do everything we need to do if we're not in a good place for ourselves? So really taking time to reflect on that, give some practical strategies, really talking about the impact that stress has on us in general, and really some practical strategies we can do to take better care of ourselves, because we're all helpers, and sometimes helpers are the worst at caring for themselves. So that really dives in there. It talks about resilience building. And again, the basics of the Building Strong Brains training module. And then it talks a little bit about comprehensive mental health school supports, that tiered system. And then again, connecting systems of support. Sometimes we have beautiful work that's happening in a siloed kind of environment. And really how are we connecting? How are we working together? How are we taking that team approach within the school and within the community to help our students be successful? The Prepare training was offered last July, I think in a virtual format. We realized the need for that ongoing, of course. It is really to help you prepare for, unfortunately, if something drastic were to occur in the future, because it is good to already have that leadership team in place and all of those postvention steps, to everybody to already be trained on that, to know exactly what to do. That way, if you do encounter a crisis, you're not having to go back and try to create something. So it's really that emergency management plan. And there lists out some topics that the training talks about here. So you may have noticed that was not offered on a huge scale this year virtually, but it is on Best for All Central. So you can go on and work on that at your pace. Janet Watkins continues to be a great contact person for the Prepare work. And I know there's several safety mentors that are trained throughout the state who also can deliver that. So you may hear about it in different ways, but if that's something your school needs a refresher on or interested in, Best for All Central is available, or Janet would be the best point of contact for that. And again, district regional health and wellbeing consultants, a huge part of that teamwork bucket of the work from our division, developing and supporting executive partnership plans with districts aimed at improving structure. So really the physical health needs, the mental health needs of the students, and again, being that thought partner in the districts to understand what you guys are seeing as needs for support. Maybe there's some training content to be developed. Maybe it's just more having somebody to kind of talk through something. Or the wonderfulness of the regional consultants is they do have that statewide lens, because they are connecting together with all 8 of them being throughout the state. So we can, kind of brainstorm on that statewide thought partnership too. Partnering with local health and education stakeholders. So maybe being a connector to a resource in the community that you're looking for, or again, just taking that out for supports. And just supporting decisions that are being made to really support students, teachers, and staff. Things that really, the 3 focal points I would say right now for them are the mental health initiatives. Again, a lot of that's coming through the awareness of the training section. Our trauma-informed initiatives, they're the ones leading that trauma-informed cohort work that we're doing. And then also something that's not mentioned on here, as they are the point of contact for any school that has the epidemiology laboratory capacity grant. So the ELC grant, which is related to COVID testing. So if you're in a district that has received that grant and is doing the COVID testing through the ELC grant, then anytime you have a question, it is directed towards the consultant. If the consultant doesn't know the answer, they will definitely quest out that answer for you. Just making sure you guys are aware of how to contact the consultant in your area. Again, for this call, Allison and Kira are your points of contact. If you got on this call and you're not in that region, here are the contacts for the other regions, but we'll make sure that we introduce each consultant for the area at each of the trainings that we do, or each of the roundtables that we do. The last thing that I'm going to go through is our trauma-informed schools work. So what is a trauma-informed school? A trauma-informed school is one in which all school administrators, teachers, staff, students, families, and community members recognize and respond to the behavioral, emotional, and academic impact of traumatic stress on those within the school environment. So we talk a lot about it as a philosophy, right? It's not a toolkit. It's not you have these 10 characteristics, these 10 things you do, and now you're a trauma-informed school. It is an everyday way we do business, is what I always hear Janet saying when we're doing work. But it really is, how do we make every single encounter that a child has a trauma-informed encounter? How do we greet our students when they get off the bus at the front door? And I know you guys are doing a lot of this work too, and that's why we want to build on it. We want to continue to highlight the greatness that you're already doing. But how do we meet them? How do we make them feel welcome? How do we make the parents feel welcome and feel good about, their kids going into the building every day with the wonderful staff that they're getting to experience? And when a child is not having a good day, how do we help them regulate in a way that is teaching them to regulate ongoing and teaching them to be their best self and their best citizen when they grow up? The benefits of implementing a trauma-informed approach is improved school climate. Again, if I'm in a building where everybody everybody has a bad day, I always like to say that. So this is not the positive world where nothing ever goes wrong, right? If we could, nobody will ever achieve that. But if everybody is using similar language, same approach, really it does create a climate where you're feeling less stressed as the staff person going, and you're carrying less weight with you because that support is divided between everybody in the building. Everybody in the building is trained on a trauma and the awareness piece. And so everybody kind of has some of those similar tools. All of our tools are going to look different, right, depending on our backgrounds and our work experiences. But it really does take some of that weight off and really make things a little bit lighter. Improved academic achievement, improved attendance, decrease in suspensions and expulsions, again, because we're learning to regulate, we're able to talk through our emotions, we're really creating, in trauma-informed work, really creating that sense of community, right? It's not just a classroom, it is a community where everyone is going to have a bad day, everybody's going to have a bad moment. That includes the adult in the room being vulnerable to acknowledge when they're not having a good day, but we're able to work through it together. So, and then the benefits of that overall for our students and for our staff, and also, teachers being able to stay in those environments and feel supported. So it talks about teacher retention, definitely being an area. And these are all things in our cohort work when we're talking about being innovative and really wanting to grow from our experiences we're having. We're looking back now at cohort 1 of trauma-informed schools and doing a needs assessment. What went really well for them? What do they need for ongoing support? So that we be the best that we can be as a collaborator for the trauma-informed work. And then for our schools that are actively going through the trauma-informed schools process, we brought everybody together this summer. We have 176 schools in the cohort now. All of them pretty much was able to come this summer. I think there were 15 that had scheduling conflicts that couldn't come, so we're training them in the fall. But really, we gave the awareness of trauma through the Building Strong Brains Strategies for Educators approach. So we did the training. Then the schools do their own needs assessment. They do their own action plan to their individual needs. They go back, they re-deliver that training. And then we do monthly communities of practice calls. So the consultants meet with teams of schools every month over the next year. That's kind of the phase we're in now, is those communities of practice calls over the next year to really talk about, okay, what does that look like in your environment? Now you're starting calming corners, or maybe you're starting morning meetings for your staff or for your students, and you're starting circles for your staff, or you're doing some restorative practices. So really helping to connect schools that are doing similar work, and then having that statewide lens also to support the work. So it does become just an ingrained philosophy in the way that the schools operate. And again, those were all schools that wanted to be trauma-informed schools and turned in applications to do that. The goals of the Trauma-Informed Schools Initiative is implementing practices within predictable structures as a comprehensive school-wide approach. So again, it's not just one person being very trauma-informed, it's really the whole building, every single person in the building, and making sure our families are aware of the work also. Promote and build supportive relationships between staff, students, families, and communities. So again, being that connector between all of those pieces and parts. Develop effective, positive school discipline. So making sure that what we're doing is working for the individual need of each student. Building student capacity to address trauma, support regulation, and build resilience. So we talk a lot about resiliency, and we talk a lot about relationship building through all of the trainings we do. Empowering students by offering choices and opportunities to participate and belong. So really that sense of safety and that sense of belonging is key to the trauma-informed work. And creating a safe and welcoming climate for our students. And I would add on to that and actually say for our students and for our staff and for our families. With the trauma-informed work, year 2 is digging in a little deeper. I know we're all so ingrained in having strategies and philosophies to do right off the bat, or, you know, hand me a curriculum to do. And trauma-informed is so much more than that. It really is that making sure we're all on the same page. We all have that same understanding, that same buy-in to why we want to be trauma-informed. And really year 2 is where we'll dig in more to additional strategies. And so this is the 6 pillars of a trauma-informed classroom. And so this coming summer, those 176 schools that are in the cohort, we will do a more in-depth 6 pillars training, kind of taking them into their second year. So when in a cohort, the school has agreed to sign up for 2 years of that ongoing support and that ongoing collaboration to really help everything be embedded into your policy, into your interactions with the families you're working with, into your classrooms, and again, into your overall staff and your students. You know, allowing flexibility within predictable structures, building supportive relationships. Again, that creating that safe place. We want every student to feel welcomed and supported and that they belong. Student voice, I mentioned youth councils earlier on being a huge part of the AWARE work. You know, how student voice and choice, so knowing that, you know, students are being listened to, their voice has value. And a lot of times, and you guys know this from working with kids, a lot of times kids pick up on things that adults totally miss, right? So really taking that time to have intentional conversations, and a lot of times that's occurring through morning meetings with students. Teach and support regulations. So again, helping students at whatever age we're working with them be able to identify their emotions and work through those emotions in a healthy way for them, whatever that means for them, as long as they're safe. And using discipline to teach and not to punish, right? We want the student to learn from the choice that's being made and being able to do something differently the next time because they realize the benefit of why they want to do something different, or kind of that concept of a redo. So that is a lot really fast, because that's, we all joke, that's who I am as a human. I'm a fast talker. So I can't see the chat. So were there any questions, Kira and Allison, in the chat that we were not able to answer?
Christy, there was only one that was added in just a moment ago, but it asked for a website that you mentioned about trauma-informed schools. I have added our Best for All Central website into the chat, so participants can easily get to there. Was there another website that you mentioned that I may have missed?
I know the comprehensive mental health slide, I think, had a link in there. So it could be the link that's on there, but I think I can double check with Denisha, but I think we might be able to share Denisha will be able to share PowerPoint out.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. If we have missed what website you're asking about, if you'll just give us a little more clarity in the chat, we will get you connected to that most definitely. And I know I finished up, I have us a little bit ahead of schedule, but I know we're supposed to take a break. And Denisha, we'll be able to take a 5, or should we take a 10, or how long should we take for our break?
Let's do 5 so we can come on back and hear Troy talk about College for 10.
All right, just making sure I didn't finish so early that Troy wasn't here. So that sounds good. Everybody take a stretch, move around a little bit. Think of something wonderful that you're going to do for yourself and some time you're going to take for yourself this week, and we will come back together in 5 minutes. Thank you, guys.
Okay, everyone, we're going to take one more minute and then we'll get started. Okay, so we'll get started with the second half of our meeting today. And Troy Grant from THEC is going to talk to us about College for TN and some exciting updates about that website and some of the things that are coming from THEC as it relates to college access. So Troy, give it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Tanisha, and good morning, everyone. I hope that you're having a great Tuesday. I'm going to, Tanisha, I can do this, right? I can share. Yeah, I'm going to share my screen real quick. Okay, let's see. Tanisha, can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much. Again, my name is Troy Grant. I'm the Senior Director of College Access at the Tennessee Higher Education Commission. And I wanted to provide you with just two kind of brief updates. One is just an update on our Path to College events initiative. And then also to talk about collegefortn.org, which we are launching a brand new version of that officially today. So go ahead and get started. For those of you who are not familiar, the Tennessee Higher Education Commission and the Tennessee Student Assistance Corporation are sister agencies that are run by the same executive director. So we are functionally combined as one agency, and our combined mission is to increase the number of Tennesseans with a post-secondary credential. And we do that work in a lot of the things that are typical coordinating higher education type work around working with the institutions. But part of that work is also what Jason C's team does in terms of financial aid outreach, what our team does, the College Access and Success team, in terms of the Advise Tennessee initiative, Gear Up, things we do for Path to College events, electronic transcript exchange, and also what we are doing with collegefortennessee.org. So the Tennessee Path to College events, the goal is to really, in short, is to create a college-going culture within elementary, middle, and high school students. The whole initiative around these events really began in 2008 when we held our first Tennessee College Application Week. We did that as part of a federal grant that we had at the time and then scaled that statewide. This year, we have nearly 700 schools, elementary, middle, and high school, who are participating in these events. And so at face value, we'll first go through the events. They are Tennessee College Application Exploration Month, so a month instead of a week this year, and it is this month of September. Tennessee FAFSA Frenzy, Tennessee College and Career Planning Night, and then Tennessee Signing Day. There is, at first glance, I think it would be really easy to say these look like exclusively high school events, but we really want this to have a K-12 focus. So yes, there's a lot about these events that are very much focused on that junior and senior year of high school, but I think this is also leveraging these events is a great way of building some college knowledge, college and career awareness and readiness, starting in elementary grades through middle school and then ultimately in high school. So we went through a rebrand this year. We have a new logo, which you can see here. This was designed to match the new colorway of our new collegefortennessee.org, which I will demo for you here shortly. We also have a new way that we are presenting the resources. And so when we get to the website, I will show you where these are. We have, for each of those 4 events, we have a page like this one that has links to resources, things that can be done directly with students, materials, ideas on how to create a really excellent Path to College event within your school. After each event, we invite school. Oh, let me put this real quick. And so I know that you can't click on this, but when I am done, Denisha, I will drop this along with a couple other folks of like contact information into the chat. So we did have initial like deadline to apply. That was back in August, but we have enough materials that if schools do want to still participate in these 4 events, they most certainly can do that. And we will get materials out to you in the next week or 2. So this is the link to register. Schools that participate in all 4 events and submit a survey, which we have on the College for TN website, to give feedback and also to report on kind of the number of students that were served. Do have the opportunity to be named at what we call a Tennessee Path to College school, and they get a banner. We send a letter to the principal and to the points of contact at the school, and this banner is what we are doing this year, that a school can proudly present in the school building. And so for those of you who participated last year, these banners, emails already went out, but banners will be going out very soon. So one of the things I just wanted to touch on as it relates to the college, where we are right now with Tennessee College Application and Exploration Month, for our high school students, seniors who are filling out college applications, we partnered with higher education institutions across the state to create these step-by-step videos on how to complete the application. On this one pager, and when we go through, I will show you where you can find this on the College for TN website. On this one pager, we have the name of the institution, a link to the video, a link to the application, and in celebration, and this is not something that we've done in the past, but in celebration of App Month, many institutions have agreed to waive their application fees. And some of them are for limited periods of time. Some of them are for the full month. UT Knoxville, for instance, is at the end of the month. University of Memphis is the first half. I think theirs ends tomorrow. And so we list that out. And I think it's just a really great kind of like one-stop shop for your students to click directly on the application. They can get to where they need to go and also see who's waiving their application fees during this month. It also really clearly outlines those institutions that do not have an application fee. And so we were really excited about this partnership and appreciative of the institutions taking the time. And even as we've pushed it out, we've gotten new institutions who have wanted to add their info, which we have done. So just a resource, and I will provide a link in the chat at the end, and I will also show you on the website where this is. This is what that looks like, so you can kind of see how we have it laid out. And the last thing I just want to point out with Path to College, because I do want to spend a fair amount of time just walking you through the new version of College for Tennessee, is Why Apply Day. So as part of our celebration of App Month, we have designated September 17th as Why Apply Day. This is actually a national effort that is led in partnership with ACT. And so the goal is to provide supportive messages. And this is something that everyone on this call, be it you work in high school or not, we encourage you to go download these materials. I'll show you where the selfie printout is. I'll also put it on in the chat. But this is basically, we're asking folks to project out some messages as to why you chose to apply to college or why students should consider applying to college. I will tell you part of my reasoning for why I think students should apply to college. I'm a first-generation college student. My family's family tree was changed because of my time going to in higher education, and I will forever be appreciative of that. And so we want to provide these messages to our seniors this year. And so this is just an opportunity. We have a selfie printout that you can print out. You can take a selfie, put it out in your social media, and use the hashtags WhyApply and hashtag TN College App Month. So again, I will show you where this is on College for Tennessee, and I will provide a link to it in the chat. So I think the thing that's probably most significant, oh, this is what the little kind of selfie little sheet looks like. So College for Tennessee has gone through a pretty significant change over the last 2 years. Up to this point, and College for Tennessee really started in 2006. We used a vendor at the time called Zap. It was always a system where you had to use a username and password. Student accounts were tied to a school, middle school or a high school, and then educators could log into that system and kind of see what students were doing within the system. There were career and college exploration tools on the website. When our last contract was coming to a close, we did a survey of school counselors, and we had a pretty healthy response. School counselors, college access professionals, over 200 folks gave us feedback on really what was the need and how could we fill that need, and what are some of the things that you liked about the existing site, things that you wish that it did or did not do. And some of the things that we heard was that the username experience was really cumbersome. It was hard to keep the data clean. It took up valuable class time to kind of get everyone signed in and then to log in. Students will forget their username and passwords, as we all know. That there really wanted to there be a kind of a single location where all the Tennessee information regarding these topics kind of lives in one place. And so that's what we sought to do with the new College for Tennessee. So if it's okay with everyone, I'm going to switch over to show you the website itself. But before I do, let me say this. And Denisha, if I could lean on you for this, I can't see the chat when I'm presenting, but if there are questions that come up throughout, please feel free to stop me. I think that watching someone walk through a website is like watching grass grow or paint dry. It can be super duper boring, and I'm not going to read every page. I just want to give you a flavor of the features that are on the new website. But that said, if you have a question, please let us know. I think one of the cool things about this website is that we own this content. The state owns the code. So this is something that we've done a huge, large-scale revision of, but we are going to be developing and adding features. And so I'm really also open to your feedback. If there are things that we can add, things that would be really helpful to you as you work with your students and their families, that would be very helpful for us to know. So I'm going to just really quickly switch over, I think.
Someone said, Troy is never super duper boring. Just FYI.
Is that a member of my team because they are on the call? So it very well could be that I paid them to do that.
Amy is from Sullivan County.
Oh, Amy. Good old Amy. I know Amy. Well, thank you, Amy. Okay, so here is the new College for Tennessee. And I'm going to zoom out just a little bit because I'm on my laptop and you're in the office so you can see a little bit better. So new brand, gone is the guitar, new colorway, looking at the site. This front page gives you a really good sense of kind of the look and feel. We wanted the site to look modern. We wanted it to look like something that was made in the 2020s. But at the same time, we didn't want it to look like a state website. We wanted it to feel, credible, but without being institutional. You'll see here across the top, there are three main buckets of student and family facing information. We have find a career, college planning, money for college. Then for our educators and our school partners, we have this school resources section. And I'll talk a little bit more about adults and parents at the end, but the school resources, this is where we're trying to curate everything that our office puts out for school counselors and college access folks is all living here in one place. So when we thought about this website, our intended audiences were high school and middle school students and families, and the adults, the educators, the school counselors, the college access folks, the mentors who provide services to those students to help them make an informed decision. We wanted to build a website which was like a one-stop shop for all of this content, where all of our agency's branded materials are. But I'll be honest with you, there are so many things that in this space, there's no way that one website can do all of the things. And so we also had this kind of hub and spoke mentality, whereas like you can go to one place and get to where it is that you need to go. So for instance, there is a website for Tennessee transfer pathways. If you have a student who's thinking about, yeah, I want to go because of promise, I want to go to a community college, but my end goal is to go to a four-year institution, we don't recreate that information, but we get the student to the content that is helpful to them. So if it's okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk through each of these kind of buckets and give you a broad overview of the features that are here. Under Find a Career, we have information about the 16 career clusters, along with links out to the Department of Education's web pages for each cluster where the different programs of studies are. We have an interest assessment. that is built off of the ONET interest assessment. Let me just pause here. We are also building kind of a way that we can provide information directly to students. That is what this sign up is. It is not required, but we will be sending out content that's age appropriate based on the graduation rate of a date of a student, so that when they're a junior, we can send out information about TSAA, for instance, and kind of get students prepped with kind of what's coming from the state. But that is an optional field. And this is something, if you've seen the ONET, U.S. Department of Labor, Holland Code interest assessment, that is what this is. You fill out the 60 questions. It's a brief assessment. I think one of the things that's great about this, the way that this is architected compared to, we had the same assessment on the old version of College for TN. It was very widely used across the state. Each of the questions was a different web page. And so if you have slow broadband or have issues, which is kind of some like latency, that's not an issue here because there were more questions on one page. The end result is the list of the 6 Holland codes in rank order. And then you can then choose to view the career fields of the 926 career fields we have on the site that match those interest of Holland codes. I will say this, one of the advantages of the old site and having that account structure was that if you were a counselor and you were using College for TN to do some of your to do the assessments for your students, but then also to meet the counselor standard requirements around assessments and when they happen, you could log in to the system and see all of your students. Because we don't have that username structure any longer, what we have provided at the end of this assessment on every career field, on every college, on every tool, essentially, there's the option to share that information with yourself if I'm a student, or I could share it with a school counselor. So I'm envisioning, I have 25 students in a computer lab, 8th graders, we're doing the career assessment, and I want them to do the assessment. I want them to email me their results. There's a way for them to do that at the end of the assessment, so you can still capture the information, and that's also true of the individual career fields. And one of the plans that we have long-term is to build out some curricular resources to kind of help flesh this out so that you have kind of like a step-by-step on how to do these kinds of things. So at the end of the interest assessment, you have your Holland codes, and then you will go to the career planning piece. And this is where we have, let's see, the 926 career fields. I'm in the office and I'm on Wi-Fi, and I'm a little bit, there we go. Okay. So here on the left, this is the architecture that you're going to see also in our database for colleges, where you can edit these career fields down. They are presented in alphabetical order. If I click on the accountant auditor piece, it's going to bring me to the overview of this career field. There is a video. If you remember on the old Zap site, I mean, there's nothing worse than having a computer engineer video, career video, and what you see are big like Mama Jamma, like desktops. These are much more up-to-date videos that are coming from the U.S. Department of Labor that give an overview of what an auditor is, what an accountant does. So we have information on what they do. We have information about how much that career folks make in that career field. We're working on kind of growing this data to include Tennessee-specific information, top skills for the job. Will there be jobs? Very important when having career conversations with students is like, what are the things that I want to do, but are there really going to be opportunities for me there? And then an overview of the daily tasks. I think that some areas that we are going to be building out some additional content in the coming months is that this education required, we're going to list the actual majors that are associated with the career field, and we're also going to add some information about related career fields. But this just gives you a picture of what these profiles look like. They're really clean and easy to do, and you'll see here there's this button to share to email that happens throughout the entire website. Next, I'm going to go to the college planning section. And you know, while I'm up here, let me just show you the navigation. What we have done here is that what we realized on the old version of the site is that we had a lot of student-facing college access resources, but they all lived on the counselor portions of the site, on behind the username and password for counselors. And so we created this space where we have student-facing information relative for just the college going process, and these are applicable to middle school and high school students. That all lives here on this piece you see to the right, where it says the college going process. We have information about applying to college, college application FAQs, college entrance exams, a college planning timeline that reaches down to the 5th and 6th grade on the things that students should know and the things that they should be doing each year as they move through middle school and high school. An overview, knowing the lingo, kind of a glossary of terms. We also have our senior milestone toolkits that we debuted last year around how do I complete the Tennessee Promise application, college applications, and filling out the FAFSA. And then also we have our student webinars and videos. And so the TSAC outreach team for juniors and seniors are doing how to pay for college webinars throughout the month. This is where you can go, a student can go and register for those webinars, and you can see where they will be. And that's where we will also put any recordings of those videos so that they can be viewed later. Over here is where we have kind of the more like tool-based pieces. I'm going to actually start here on disability resources because I think that this is a novel thing and it's new for us, is that in talking to, and this was at a counselor collaborative, we heard from institution folks, you know, there is oftentimes a lot of confusion amongst students and families and educators about the differences between accommodations that are provided for students with disabilities in high schools and K-12 settings versus college settings. So we wanted, and there's a lot of information on individual college websites about disability services, but there is no kind of central repository in the state about what are the things that might be available to me to help me kind of like think through if I'm a pre-college, a pre-post-secondary student, what are the things I can be thinking about to help me make an informed decision? So we have information about what this looks like in high schools versus colleges, how do you request academic accommodations. We also have an outline for a series of kind of disability areas, blindness, low vision resources, an overview, blindness, low vision definitions, along with common accommodations, and a list of apps, websites, and other software that may be of assistance to this student. And so we have this across a multitude of areas, and I hope that this is something that is a helpful thing for our Tennessee students. We have I'm going to go ahead and take you to the database of colleges. So very similar setup to what we had on the career side of things, the navigation here on the left. And then I'm going to click on one of the profiles. What we are doing with this data, we are pulling data from the U.S. Department of Education's federal scorecard for every institution. And let me tell you the institutions that we're highlighting here. We are highlighting institutions that are eligible to receive Tennessee Lottery Scholarship, Tennessee Promise dollars. So they are going to be the public and private four-year institutions. They are going to be the community colleges, the TCATs, and a couple of other institutions that might be proprietary institutions, but that are also eligible to receive that funding. So you might see a four-year institution like South College, but you would not see kind of a local kind of like cosmetology school on this list. And so if you look through, we have an at a glance that kind of gives you an overview. The graduation rate, this is important information for our students to be looking at when looking at their college options. This is the percentage of students who finish a credential in 150% of time, which 150% of time is kind of higher ed speak for if I am at a four-year institution. So within 6 years, this is the percentage first-time full-time students who are graduating from this institution. We also highlight the average annual cost. This is the cost of tuition, living expenses, books, supplies, fees, minus the average grants and scholarships provided for federal aid recipients. I think it's important to note that this dollar figure will fluctuate depending on the availability of state aid that a student receives, but it gives an idea of what the average annual cost is. I will also note for, this is kind of a wonky point to make, but for our institutions, the average annual cost is just like the average annual cost. For our TCATs, those programs cost different amounts of money. So what we do is we highlight the average annual cost for the largest program in terms of enrollment, which in most TCATs is like an allied health area. We have a link to the website. We have the fall to fall retention for first year students. Again, the graduation rate, the 5 most popular fields of study at that institution, and also a listing of all of the programs of study at that institution. We give an overview of the student body, the number of undergraduates, the number of those percent of those that are part-time versus full-time, the racial and ethnic kind of breakdown of those students, gender breakdown, socioeconomic diversity, what percentage of students at that institution are receiving Pell funding, and for our adult learners, how many of the students at this institution are 25 and older. Again, paying for college, this is the average annual cost, and then we break down the federal data by income. So typically the average annual cost based on how much the family income is. And then for every institution, we have a link to the personal net price calculator at the institution. Every college's website is required to have a net price calculator where you can put in factors about yourself and it'll kind of like spit out kind of what the net price for a student would be. We link to that calculator for every one of the institutions. And then finally, test scores, the acceptance rate, and then the kind of like middle median, kind of like 25 to 75% percentile of ACT, SAT scores. I'll note for our open access institutions, there will be no data for these two. So for TCATs, community colleges, they don't report this information. So that is an overview, a flyover of the kind of what the college pieces look like. We also have a step-by-step guide that I think is a really great way of looking through this information, as opposed to students just looking at the institution that they know, because they know what they know. They can go through a series of questions like, these are the type of institutions that I'm looking for, and then it will then refine the list of institutions to meet the requirements that they outlined. One thing I do want to just point out really quickly, I mentioned to you that that toolkit for application videos. If you go to the college planning section and go over here under college going resource process and go to senior milestones toolkit, this is where you will go and you can choose. These are the different milestones that we've put out there. I'm going to go to college application, and this is where that toolkit is. So if you want to download that list of institutions and the video links, the application links, and who's waiving application fees, this is where that is. I will also, when I'm done, put that in the chat just so that you have it handy. Okay, money for college. It's interesting, you know, we live in a state that, and I don't know that we talk about this enough, Tennessee per capita, per student, gives more financial aid to students than any other state in the country. Last year, even amidst a pandemic, with fewer students going to college, as we all kind of know the realities of that, we gave out as a state $500 million in financial aid for Tennessee students. That's huge. But what is also true, and we know this from the surveys that we have done at the agency here at THEC, is that students understand promise really well. It's kind of been the thing we've talked about, and it's an innovation that is the envy of many states. That being said, we also have other programs that we need to do a better job, and I'm saying we, here at THEC, of communicating about Hope Lottery Scholarship, what the Tennessee Student Assistance Award is, and the benefit that it provides. Some of you may be familiar with College Pays, which has been the website that we have used within the state where all of the financial aid information is. We've taken all of the College Pays content and ported it over to College for TN, again, creating this hub. So we have on Money for College an overview of financial aid, how to fill out the FAFSA. These are all our step-by-step guides that we did last year, instructions and also videos on how to fill out the FAFSA. Financial aid myths, but I'm going to zero in on this Tennessee financial aid piece. We have this organized by 4-year schools, 2-year schools, TCAT's proprietary institutions, and you'll see then for 4-year institutions, these are all the financial aid programs that can be used at 4-year institutions. I'm just going to click here on Hope Lottery Scholarship real quick. For every one of these programs, we have an overview, award information, eligibility, how do I apply, determination criteria, and then what related links, if there are any. So I'm sure those of you who work with high school students, you know this. There are 2 different ways you apply for financial aid within the state. You either fill out the FAFSA, Hope Lottery Scholarship, and TSAA, that's how you apply, or you fill out an application like for the Tennessee Promise or for the dual enrollment grant, for instance. So this apply now, depending on the program, will give you a directive. So for instance, for Hope Lottery, you fill out the FAFSA. We provide a link to our how to do that. But then what this link will do will take you directly to the FAFSA's homepage. Whereas if I were on the Tennessee Promise, it would then take me directly to the TSAC student portal to create an account and to fill out that application. And again, this is all the content that is currently on College Page, just organized, I think in a more visually kind of like digestible way. We're really excited about this. I think it's going to make it a lot easier for folks to find the information, and we'll continue to refine some of these aspects, but I hope that you find this to be like a great kind of like step forward. Also wanted to show you real quickly the lifestyle calculator. So we have a resource that we call Adulting 101. It is a simulation game that we've targeted for middle school and early high school, where students are in a gym-like setting. This was all conceived pre-COVID, but like you have a group of kids all together. We have stations, and you create a budget based on like your life experience. So like you are given a card and you are a student. I am like an individual who has this degree or I don't have a degree. I have this many kids. And then I can go to these different stations and I can choose information like what size house do I want? What kind of a car do I want? What insurance do I need? And basically it builds out this budget. And you can break your budget based on the amount of money that you have available because of your job. And there's a point at the middle that you can go back to college and retool if you so choose. So we had this simulation game. We wanted to create a digital version of this. So you go through this content. I'm just going to really quickly kind of randomly choose things because I want you to see the end. Students go through and choose these items. And at the end, you can see it produces a budget a monthly budget. There's a monthly budget. I think this is a great resource for financial literacy or kind of that kind of personal finance type class. And then it tells you the salary that you need annually in order to sustain that lifestyle. I don't know about you, but when I was in high school, I had no sense for what utilities cost or what really anything cost except for like my gas to get from here to there. And then we link to then the career fields that you can then search based on the annual salary that you kind of built out in terms of your lifestyle. So again, I think it's a great tool. We plan on building some kind of aligned to state standard lesson plans around the use of this tool, but I think it's a cool new feature of the website. Okay, so those are the resources, and I'm going to be really mindful of time because I'm almost out of it. So that's the career, college, money piece, and then finally the school resources. We've taken everything that we have created, we've tried to curate it in a more comprehensive way and put it in one place. So all of our Path to College materials I mentioned. For instance, this is Tennessee College Application Exploration Month. This is where all of the materials for that event live. So high school, middle school, elementary, volunteer engagement, ready to go letters, ways to recruit volunteers and thank them, social media templates. This is where, if you would like to participate in our Why Apply Day initiative this Friday, where you can get the instructions and all of the materials you need for that. This is also where you go fill out the survey at the end of the event. And there's one of these links and will be on each of the pages for the site, for the Path to College. This is also where, if you are interested in the electronic transcript exchange, which I absolutely plug, it's a resource that we provide to all high schools at no cost. You can do that. And then the Adulting 101 game that I talked about, our next guides, if you are a participant in our Path to College events, we've sent you one of these in the past. We have these guides that we have developed for 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. They really are wonderfully done. I actually have one right here. Workbooks for students that walk students through the things that they need to be thinking about, looking at, decisions they need to make for the college going process. We have did these as part of a Gear Up Tennessee initiative and Advise Tennessee, and we print them for those schools. We offered out to schools who wanted to print them at our cost this year, and several schools did. But if you are interested in using these, you can use the entire book. You can also just take individual pages. There's activities, there's a section for planning on what episodes do I want to take. There's a lot of really rich content here. We have the downloadable PDF here. We also have a fillable PDF here. And so if you want to use these digitally, if you're a one-to-one school, you can download these. Students can fill out their workbook as they go along and just keep a local copy of it. So I just think this is an awesome resource that our team has pulled together. So this is where all of these live. We also have our educator webinars here. So the stuff that the team is going to be doing in terms of financial aid 101, you can register for all of those here. And this is where, as we do those webinars, we will archive them for you to view if you can't visit. And we also will be sending out an email announcing College for TN later on today. This is where we're also going to populate kind of run-throughs of the website that we'll do later. And then finally, for those of you who do use the FAST system, I think that there's sometimes a little bit of confusion about, this is the system for financial aid, about FAST for counselors versus the TSAC student portal. If you go here, we have a link to both. We also have videos that walk you through how to use the counselor side of the FAST system. And we are going to also be populating this with step-by-step instructions. So if you work with Tennessee Promise students, how do I pull that report out of FAST? If I need to pull a report for dual enrollment, we're going to be populating those things all here in one location. And then the last thing is just we have our links out to adult learners, and then we have some information for parents. This is an area that we're going to be growing out. And the last thing I would say is that we're building out, again, like I said, for students, and we'll roll this out later. But we have a newsletter that we're going to be creating so that we can just begin building at a state level more awareness around college access and success topics earlier. Okay, so I have talked your ear off and kind of walked you through the site, but I'd be so curious if there are any questions that I could answer, or Denisha, if anything came through, happy to answer any questions. But I hope you all are excited about the new College for Teen as we are. We're super pumped about it.
There's nothing in the chat except for will the presentation be available? The demo, of course, wouldn't be available. Well, I guess you could see it on the recording, but the presentation you can see within the recording as well that we can send out to you.
And I will say one more plug for the Path to College events. If you go to the Path to College events website, we have also done a crosswalk between the school counseling standards and the Path to College events to kind of better like help folks visualize where those 4 events kind of live in relationship to the school counselors. So anyway, we're super excited about it. I will get to work putting in the chat some of those links that I mentioned, but I appreciate so much the time to share with everyone today.
Awesome. Are you getting a couple of, the website looks great. Jeff said the site looks great and much more functional at first glance.
Good. That's what we want to hear.
If there's any other feedback or questions, you can drop those in the chat, or you can come off mute if you're able to do so. And I know Troy is going to drop those links in the chat. If you did not register for this training, but you want to get the registration, or you want to get the recording or the presentation, reach out to one of us and we can send it to you. I'll drop my email in as well so that you can reach out to me and I can send you those things. One of the last things that we wanted to let you know about is, of course, the Scally Conference is coming up at the end of this month, September 26th through the 28th in Murfreesboro. You can still register, and I do believe there is a lower rate if you are a TASCA member. It's taking place at the Embassy Suites and Hotel and Convention Center in Murfreesboro, so I hope to see some of you there. Myself and Liza will be presenting on career assessments, and I'll also be presenting with another one of my colleagues, Matthew Spinella, on the collaboration of school counseling and work-based learning. So I know that we also have some of our school counselor advisory council members who will be presenting some great topics related to working with your administration and program management. So I think there's going to be a wealth of information. I believe, Troy, you're also presenting as well? Yes. Awesome. So we've got that in the works as well, and TDOE is one of the sponsors, as well as, of course, the Tennessee School Counselor Association and the National Center for Youth Issues. Our next School Counselor Regional Roundtables will be in November. The dates will be announced, and we will definitely let you know about those as soon as we have them set in stone. Thank you all for joining us today. We'll definitely get any of these links out to you, as well as the presentations, both presentations and the video, if you'd like to send that out to colleagues or just keep it for yourself for future reference.